Let's talk about picking the perfect frugal focus word for 2023. I borrowed the idea for this video from a sermon that I heard. Last Sunday on January 1st, I visited a local church that two of our sons attend, and the pastor spoke on picking a focus word for the new year. Now, we had actually heard of this concept throughout the past few years, but believe it or not, we have never, ever had a focus word for the new year. Now, the more we learned about it, the more we thought, well, this is kind of a fun concept. So we wanted to share those ideas with you. Now, in the sermon, the pastor invited the congregation to submit their ideas for really the focus of the church and the direction it should go in 2023. And so we wanted to let you know what went into our process that we went through to pick a focus word for the new year. And this focus word is specifically directed around our finances. We'll give you kind of the benchmarks that we used, and it'll give you kind of some guidelines to help you also pick the perfect focus word for the new year.
We're also going to explain why a focus word is important and how it can help you in your 2023 financial goals.
And yes, we will reveal our focus word for 2023.
In case you don't know us, I'm Larry.
And I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Median, where every week we talk about practical frugality. So why do you need a focus word for this year?
Well, first of all, a focus word helps you prioritize your goals and know exactly what you're going to concentrate on.
It also helps you to get motivated and strive to do the very best you can for this year.
Ultimately, it will help you to organize your goals and to make more rapid progress on them if you have an exact theme for the year that you're focusing on.
So does it need to be just one word?
Well, that is the whole idea of a focus word. However, we are great fans of one overarching word along with some smaller words that sort of cluster alongside of it and help support that main word that you've chosen to focus on for the new year. And one of the reasons we say that is because that's the way that we did it. We picked one focus word and three words that help support our overall focus for 2023.
So in picking out a word, you want to be very careful in your selection. Make sure it's a positive word because you're going to be thinking about this quite a bit throughout the year.
Make sure it's a word that you are comfortable knowing that you're going to be seeing quite a bit, because we like to put the focus word throughout the house where we can see it. And remember, you'll be talking about your focus word as well quite a bit. Now, although we shared that we had never had a focus word, we actually have had key phrases that during times of our life where we were like really honing in on a goal and really trying to reach that goal as quickly as possible, we actually have had key phrases that we repeated to one another over and over again. That act of actually saying something, hearing yourself say it, and seeing it all at the same time helps really embed that in your subconscious and helps you to stay on track.
I have an example of this.
Yeah.
When we were changing homes, we were moving into this home and selling our old home. The old home was in kind of an older neighborhood. Housing market was a little soft at the time. And every time that I looked at that house, I looked at it and I said the word sold. This house is sold. So the focus word for that house was sold, and that is what we focused on. And I did some things to kind of reach that goal. Cleaned up the yard, made sure the house was painted, all fixed up, met all of the standards that a house needs for selling. And by golly, we sold that house in, I believe it was just about 2 months. It was 60 days. We sold that house. We focused on the fact that the house was sold, not the fact that it was on the market.
Now, we are not saying that you need to name it and claim it. But what we are saying is what you speak, what you hear, and what you think about, that automatically becomes the direction that you tend to head far more often.
You know, I don't know if there's any bowlers out there, hoping I don't happen to bowl.
We bowl poorly.
Yeah,
we have bowled. We just do it poorly.
I think I've only been out about 3 times in my whole life. But if you're a bowler and you're looking down that alley and you're focusing on that center pin, guess where your ball is more than likely going to end up? But if you're focusing on the gutter, well, that's where the ball is probably going to go. So you want to make sure that you're very pinpointed on the focus that you have for this year. Hope, let's talk about some guidelines that we can all use for choosing our focus word.
These are guidelines that we went through together as we chose the focus word for 2023. First of all, choose a word that is in alignment with your goals. Now, this is exactly why focus words change from one year to the next, because your goals don't remain static. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have that list of goals that you want to accomplish in 2023. Then look at that list of goals and think what one word sort of encapsulates all of those goals together. And that might very well be your perfect frugal focus word for 2023.
You also want to choose a word that reflects your values. You want a word that's going to reflect who you are and exactly what you're wanting to do for this year.
Choose a word that is in sync with where you are in your season of life. The word that we would have chosen when we had 4 young kids at home is probably different than the word we're going to choose this year. This year is definitely a year in which we are in a state of flux because Larry retired in December, which means that for us, like our finances are a little bit more fluid than they generally are. So we chose our word deliberately based on the season in life that we're going through right now. And remember, stick with us because we're going to tell you what our focus word is.
You also want to choose a word that inspires you. This happens to be part of the motivation that this word can bring about. If you're inspired, you're going to want to roll right into it.
Choose a word which is something that you want more of. In fact, that's a great exercise to do. Right underneath that list of goals that you have for 2023, make a list of items that you think, if I think back to 2022, what are some things in 2022 that I thought, wow, in 2023, I would love to have more of this? And it might be something that you found you really struggled to have in 2022. Once again, write those words down because what you're doing by going through this exercise is you're creating along the way a list of words that may be the perfect fit for your focus word for 2023.
Choose a word that you need to focus on. This is something that you really need to obtain for 2023.
Choose a word that you can easily remember. There's nothing worse than like choosing a word and going, what was that word that I picked? So like, don't go through the thesaurus and pick like a fancy word that you really don't use on a regular basis because you probably won't remember your focus word. Make sure it's something that is really applicable to your life right now. And you're going to go, yeah, I instantly remember what that word is.
You'll also want to choose a word that will reflect the future that you want. Whatever you're looking forward to, something really good that you see that you want to have coming in the future, focus on a word that will reflect that future goal.
Pick a word that reflects your honest intentions. Now, this is hard because I think this is where like those New Year's resolutions things come in. And that's why I think a focus word might be a little different. So if you've tried New Year's resolutions in the past and thought, nope, they don't work, then try a focus word because you might find that a focus word actually works more effectively for you than a list of resolutions that when you make them, you're thinking in your head, yep, I'm never going to get this done. So choose a focus word that you think, yes, I can honestly, I can hone in on that word and I can follow that word for the next 12 months and feel really, really positive about it. So pick something that you have the best of intentions that you're actually going to follow through with.
And kind of dovetailing off of that, you'll want to choose a word that you can stick to for 12 months. A lot of us have some goals that we put out right after the first of the year, and maybe we only stick to them for about 3 weeks. Choose a word that you can go the long haul with for the entire year.
And finally, remember what we said a little bit earlier, where your thoughts go, where your speech goes, what you hear, all of that impacts what your actions are. So make sure that your word for the year is something that you can actually follow through on, and you'll feel really, really great every time you say it, every time you hear it, every time you write it, every time you think about it. So what was our word for 2023? We'll tell you the word and then we'll sort of tell you why we picked that word.
Our focus word for 2023 is clarity.
Now, we chose clarity because, as we mentioned a little earlier, with Larry retiring, yes, we've gone through all the numbers. Yes, we had a really good idea that it was time for him to retire, that financially we were ready for him to retire. But what we think is going to happen is that in real life, in week to week, month to month application, those numbers are going to be a little more wiggly than we are used to them being. So we chose the word clarity because what we're really looking for from 2023 is to just really take time to take a deep breath and think through things before we panic. Because I think that when your finances are not quite as stable and they're a little more fluid than you're used to them, then sometimes that sort of sense of dread can kick in and you're thinking, oh my word, we're going to make a horrible error. We're going to make a horrible mistake. So for us, clarity, definitely the focus word. But we told you that we are all about cluster words because for us, picking one word was really, really hard. So we have 3 words that we also picked that are like subcategories that will help us to support this whole focus word of clarity.
Well, first, I want to talk about clarity. You know, it's interesting that we chose clarity as the focus word because as a photographer, one of the things that you have to have is your picture in good focus, and clarity is a part of that. If you have it in perfect focus, you can see what's going on, and that's the idea behind clarity. We want to see the picture the way it is.
So what are our supporting words that are going to help us in this whole focus word of clarity? The first one is trust. I feel like this is really going to be a year when we pull together and we not only trust one another, but we trust our gut. Because I think there's something internally that allows you to say, yeah, this is a good choice. This is a good direction to go, or something that says, no, we want to hold on that. And in relation to that, one of our rules throughout 35 years of marriage has been that if we are not in agreement about something, we don't move forward with it. So I think that whole idea of having that trust factor with one another, super important.
Another one is flexibility. You have to be willing to change and adjust goals according to what happens. We can't always control some of the things that come over the horizon. So you have to be a little flexible in what you're shooting for.
Now, the third word is a little bit different than I think we thought we would pick, but it sort of has that overarching theme of what we're looking for, and that is serenity. And I think when we consider serenity, it's something that sort of, no matter what's going on externally, that internally we can feel that flow of peace and know that everything's going to be okay. And I think we've sort of talked about that a lot on the channel in 2022 because of the uncertainty of everything that was going on. And we told you repeatedly, it's okay, take a deep breath, we're going to get through this. And that's kind of where that serenity and that internal peace comes in, is knowing that it's going to be okay.
As you think about some of the things that Hope and I have discussed in this video about a focus word, we'd like to hear what your focus word is. Go ahead and tell us in the comments what you've picked and why. And don't make this too hard. This isn't a real hard thing. Just think about what you want to do for 2023 and narrow the scope down to one word that would reflect what you want to aim for this year.
Now, if you want more ideas that will give you focus and clarity in your finances, you want to check out that video right over there because we gave you some really fantastic ideas.
Well, our word for 2023 is...
Can I do this? My drum roll. All right.
I don't do it as good as you.
Wait, we should put that at the end. That should be our blooper. Okay.